Hi people. So in the last video we made some guns, some low poly video game guns, and if we would want to make a game we would also need some props for this. So as I was inspired by Counter-Strike anyway in the last video when making the gun, I thought we might as well do some Counter-Strike-esque props. And I mean, basically, of course, the first props that come to mind when thinking about Counter-Strike are some office appliances, like an old PC, an old monitor. Because, of course, the best Counter-Strike map is not Dust 2. As everybody knows, it's actually CS Office. And this is why we will be doing some office appliances today. And this time I also will talk about some basic modeling techniques along the way. So as always we will need some reference, because even if we think we know how things look, we often just don't have the details in our head. And we can also use the reference as textures later. So I basically just googled some old PC screens. And yeah, if you want to use them commercially later, as always, just make sure you have the licenses, etc, etc. But for this tutorial I just screenshotted or saved some images into a texture that I created in Affinity Photo. Basically removed all the backgrounds that I didn't need. And yeah, afterwards I finished by removing some logos and also just kind of color correcting them, so we can use all those reference images for our object, because yeah, when I saved them they all had kind of different hues. So first of all, if you're an absolute beginner, you should watch another video that I'll be doing on my channel, where I teach you the absolute basics of how to use Blender and how to navigate in the 3D space and everything, which shortcuts to use and basic concepts. In this video I will gloss over it sometimes. Also here are some of the shortcuts that you will use the most, probably, just as a quick reminder. But if you're an absolute beginner, you might watch the other video first. So yeah, let's go. So as we start with our new file, we have our default cube there. We just delete that because we will be using the images as planes add-on and just load in our reference that we made before. So there it is. And yeah, then we change the material type to opaque, because that will remove some hassles later down the way. So yeah, basically what I will be doing now is delete it and we will start with a cube, basically, because a computer monitor just is a cube and we don't need to start with a plane. And then we basically grab things with G, inset and extrude with I and E. We repeat the extrusion once or twice, and we scale with S. So then we basically have our computer shape. Then we inset again, and we can basically also just grab individual edges or faces or vertices in edit mode if we just cycle through with 1, 2 and 3. Then we switch to the shading window and we will make in the node editor our new material. Basically I just didn't do that because with our images as planes add-on we already did our material. And then basically we add our texture to our monitor. That looks still shit, so we select the face in edit mode and press U to unwrap it. And then in the UV unwrap thing, we can just yeah, put our vertices onto the different parts of the picture, and now we see that our face is unwrapped and the texture aligns to what we see in the UV editor. So yeah, that was basically right, but it still looks weird because we had a square monitor and monitors aren't square, so we just resized that with X and just Y because we scale only on the Y-axis. And then we repeat the unwrapping process for all the other faces. So we unwrap them, and then we can basically scale them and move them around in the UV editor with S or G for grab. Yeah, and we just move them to parts of the picture so they look nice. It isn't a particularly correct way of doing it, but it's a fast way of doing it relative compared to other techniques. And we also get lots of information and detail from the texture itself, and we don't have to model that, which keeps our model nice and low poly, the way we want it to be in a game. So afterwards we basically repeat this whole process for all the other faces and make sure that they fit our idea for what a computer screen looks like. And after that we can basically start to put in more details in our monitor. Just after what is actually right in the texture. So then after that we use the knife tool for the first time. Using K we can basically cut into our model just as we wish. This can basically really hurt our topology because we can completely disregard symmetry and everything, but it's a nice tool to get quick results. And we basically use it to model this front panel of the monitor that stands a bit out. So yeah, after we're finished cutting, we just extrude, and then we continue to add more details to our monitor using extrude, inset, the knife tool, and just basic grabbing and scaling. And yeah, always don't forget to just move the UV faces to somewhere where they don't look shitty. Just can be some random flat face on your picture in the texture. Also, another useful technique that we will use here is pressing G twice to use an edge without screwing up your texture. You see, as you do it, the texture will stay the same basically. And next we will use the bevel tool that you can use to make your edges more round. You press B in edit mode, and then you can move the mouse and it will create a bevel. Then you can also use the mouse wheel to basically change the amount of edges that get inserted into your edge to make it more smooth or less smooth, depending on how much polygons you want in your model. One thing though is that if your model has a complex form with concave and convex shapes in it, the bevel tool is really prone to mess up your mesh, and you will see basically a substantial part of the rest of this video is me just trying around with the bevel tool because it messes up my topology, and sometimes I just basically go in manually and delete and just reposition some vertices so the bevel tool doesn't mess up the topology as much, or I repair the mesh manually. This is just a part of modeling that you cannot get around basically if you are not using a CAD software or something that isn't polygon based. But yeah, it's not that bad. So here we turn our shading to smooth, as most game engines render their objects with smooth interpolated shading instead of flat faces. And as you can see, we have some artifacts on the more round edges of our model. Basically, yeah, the worst thing is like where the monitor panel is at the front. And yeah, you can basically try to alleviate that if you add extra polygons to your model. And basically by doing this, you give the computer more information to work with on how to shade your object. But yeah, I try first to just triangulate my model and see if some of the errors resolve themselves. But yeah, as often you have to do some things manually. Yeah, so next we just create the monitor stand, which is basically a cylinder where we reduce the number of vertices after spawning it. And yeah, we just place our monitor on top and unwrap it. And yeah, that's basically it. It's a real simple object, really simple geometry. And after that, we add another object, we scale it, we unwrap it, so we have our keyboard texture on it. And then we basically just use the knife tool to carve out some blocks where the keys are on the keyboard. And after that, we just extrude those keys, so it basically looks like a bit more than just a cylinder, a rectangle. But yeah, not much to it, to the keyboard. And after that we do the mouse, which is a bit more complicated because it's rounded, but it's basically the same process again. Just add the object, texture it, and then we do quite a bit of just moving around polygons to see how it looks, and we move around the polygons in the UV editor so it doesn't look that squashed, because yeah, like textures get those weird artifacts if you move them around too much, because they don't have affine texture scaling or warping. That's what I guess it's called. So yeah, but after a while we basically have our mouse, and it has some polygons, a bit more than I like it to have. So for that we use a modifier, basically to just reduce the number of vertices of the mouse. It does this completely automatic, it doesn't destroy our UVs, and yeah, that's basically our mouse. So yeah, we're finished, I guess. This is our low polygon PC office setup that we could use in a Counter-Strike map, for example.